Since her husband died, feeding her family has always been hard for Susan Matir. But in December last year, it became much harder when fighting in South Sudan pushed the price of food for her family beyond reach.
Since the problem started, food has become very expensive. Sometimes the shops aren't even open, so life has become very hard. We have to eat less these days because we can't afford to buy enough food.
South Sudan produces very little food, so relies on imports. Foreign traders were drawn to Juba by the promise of the large profits the city once offered. But since December, many of the residents have fled, and a combination of fewer customers and higher prices are making life hard for the traders as well as the consumers.
Before Christmas, things were moving very well. I was making good money, enough to support me and my family. But since the conflict started, things are bad. Goods are expensive and there are no customers, so life is becoming very hard these days.
This used to be a thriving marketplace, so much so that traders came from all over the region to sell their goods here. But since the crisis began, many of them have simply closed up their shops and gone home. Right now, the government is receiving enough oil revenue to function and pay salaries. But the rebel forces have made it clear that their goal is to disrupt oil production, and if they succeed, it will leave President Salva Kiir with very little income and no significant reserves to rely on.
If the oil is shut down, then there will be a more serious problem. It will not be like the first shutdown. At that time, government had some reserve and so forth, and also it was focusing on one particular challenge. But here you have so many challenges.
For Susan, the challenge is simply finding enough money to feed her family each day. Around the country, the story is the same, with half of the population struggling to get enough to eat. 2014 was supposed to be a year of growth, but instead it's going to be a challenge just to prevent famine. Cavell, Al Jazeera, Juba, South Sudan.